Hey, what's up? Welcome to the video. And this one is about sound design basics. The reason I've created this video is because, I remember when I was starting out back in the massive days, and I was looking at things like Wavetable, and I was like, what is a wavetable? What is a filter? What is this? What is that? So this video is for those of you who are starting out, who want to get the foundations of sound design, to then start watching my other videos that I have, videos that I'm gonna create in the future, in which I talk more in depth about sound design. And I don't wanna let you guys behind when I talk about more advanced things. So yeah, in this video, we're gonna talk about what is an oscillator, what is a filter, what is modulation, and then post-processing effects. And I will be using Serum to show you all of those things. So let's start talking about the oscillators, okay? An oscillator is basically the source, the generator of the sound. A sound is basically a wave or oscillation that arrives to our eardrum, and that's what produces the sound in our head. So oscillators are the generators of those first waves, okay? Now, what can you do in an oscillator? On every synth, pretty much, you're gonna have something called basic shapes. Those are the sine wave, the saw wave, the triangle wave, and the square wave. Those are the most fundamental, the most commonly used waves that you're gonna hear pretty much on every song ever. And the more complex waves and wavetables have usually been created using these basic shapes. So what are the differences between all of these shapes? Well, let's go to the spectrum analyzer and let's play some of these sounds. We're gonna play the sine wave right now. As you can see, a sine wave is pretty much one frequency being played. Now, synths are not perfect. Even if they're digital, they don't produce the perfect shape that they're portraying to you. They have something called aliasing, and that's why you see some little peaks here and there on the high end, mostly. But those are barely audible. So to simplify things, let's say that this is just one frequency. Now, let's look at the saw wave. As you can see, the saw wave has many peaks above the fundamental tone. The biggest and lowest frequency that you can see in the spectrum is called the fundamental tone or the fundamental harmonic. And all of the peaks that you see above that, they are also harmonics. And in the case of the saw wave, they are even and odd harmonics, okay? They are all of the harmonics. Now, if we go to the triangle wave, now we're gonna see a very different spectrum. In this case, it has half of those harmonics. It's actually skipping the even harmonics. So it only has odd harmonics. So the first, the third, the fifth, so on and so forth. And the square wave also has half the harmonics. But it sounds different from the triangle wave because the intensity of the harmonics is different and the phase of the harmonics is also different. Okay, and let's talk about what we can do with these oscillators. So if we're using a wavetable oscillator, in the case of Serum, we are using a wavetable oscillator, there are things called wavetables. And what is a wavetable? Well, a wavetable is kind of a 3D surface, and using the wavetable position right here, you are scanning through that table, producing a different sound on each point of that wavetable. So that is what a wavetable is. On oscillators, you can have multiple voices. And what multiple voices, also called unison, does is basically gonna play multiple voices of the same sound. Let's hear how it sounds. So as you can hear, it sounds fuller, It is used very commonly with chords, with something called super saw, which is a very, very common, if not the most common synth sound that you will hear. And yeah, that's pretty much what you can do with an oscillator. Let's talk about filters. In synthesis, there's something called subtractive synthesis. And what it means really is that we're starting with a wave and then we are subtracting frequencies from it to come up with a new sound. So if we were to use a low pass, as you can hear, it sounds very different. A high pass is going to sound different. And there are many, many different filters. Again, filters basically take frequencies out of the sound. And later on, we will talk about how we can bring back frequencies into the sound. Because of course, if we are filtering out frequencies, the sound is going to get thinner, the sound is going to get weaker, but we can later on add frequencies back and make it fat and all of those good things. So don't worry too much. During the process of sound design, you shouldn't worry too much about making your sound weaker and thinner, as long as you have a plan for making it fatter later on again. So let's talk about the meat of sound design, where the creativity can flow, where everything gets more complex. And it's modulations, okay? What is a modulation? Well, a modulation really is when you are taking a shape, let's say a shape, it could be a wave, it could be something else, shape, and you are using that to change a value of the synth, okay? So for example, we could automate the filter cutoff, okay? Let's say we drew the automation and it did this. Well, that would be modulating the cutoff with our automation. But we can also use something called LFOs, low frequency oscillators. Low frequency oscillators are oscillators that are low enough in frequency that you cannot hear them as a tone. Okay, that's basically what it means. And a low frequency oscillator is very useful because it repeats the same automation over and over again. So let's do wavetable position. As you can hear, this triangle shape that we have right here is modulating the wavetable position. You can see it moving right there. And of course, we can change this shape to come up with different sounds, different modulations, and so on. We can change the rate or the speed of the LFO. We can change if it follows the tempo of the track or not. We can make it follow, for example, an eighth note, or maybe we can make it follow 9.9 hertz. Like, you can choose the speed freely. And we also have other things and other shapes that can modulate the values of our synth. So we have the envelopes, which an envelope is basically kind of like an LFO, but it only plays once. It only repeats itself once. And usually it has this shape right here, this type of shape. You cannot do like a sine wave with an envelope. It usually has this type of rising, sustain, then it goes down, and when you stop pressing the key, it goes all the way down. And with these controls, you can change basically how fast it goes from one stage to the next. But these are not the only types of modulation. There are many, many types of other modulations. And you can use, for example, a wave, an oscillator, a regular sound to modulate certain values of certain things as well. Now, you're probably thinking like, wait, what? How can I use this oscillator to modulate something else? Well, in the case of Serum, you cannot modulate, for example, the panning with this saw wave, but you can modulate the frequency. And that is what's called FM, frequency modulation. Okay. How do we do this? Well, in this panel right here, we have off. We can choose FM from B. What FM from B means is that this saw wave is gonna modulate the frequency of our wavetable right here. That is another type of modulation. We have other types of modulation, like AM, which would be this shape is modulating the amplitude of our oscillator A. We have ring modulation, which is pretty similar to AM. We're not gonna get into specifics here. And then we have things like vocoders and other effects that can also modulate a sound using another sound as a source of modulation. So what about effects and using them to sound design? Well, effects are really, really important for sound design because, as I said before, sometimes when you apply a filter, when you do certain types of modulation, the sound is gonna lose body. The sound is gonna feel thinner. The sound is gonna go, basically you're gonna gain something out of the sound that you wanted, and then maybe you're gonna lose something else that you didn't want to lose. And with effects, you can bring frequencies back, you can distort, you can compress it, you can do very drastic changes in the sound to make it sound better, okay? So, in my opinion, when you are doing sound design, most of the time, you should frame it as first, you're doing the subtractive synthesis where you are trying to create the character, the texture of the sound that you want, basically the basic core of the sound that you want to achieve, and then with effects, you want to make that polished, you want to make that sound good, you want to make that actually fit the mix and all of that. But yeah, that's all for this sound design basics video. I'm gonna be making for sure more advanced videos in the future. I also have more advanced videos throughout my channel. And by the way, this next thing that I'm gonna talk to you about is only for people who have been following me, who like my videos. If you're new to the channel, if you don't really enjoy my videos that much, this next part, you can ignore it and click off the video and do whatever you want. But basically, I've set up a Patreon page for Kithairon, for this channel. And that way you can go and support me if you want, if you have the means, if you have the financial freedom, you can go to my Patreon page, support me in order for me to create more and more videos of more and more quality and to help you guys to produce better music. So yeah, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and peace.